question, could you please introduce yourself and say a bit about your tradition and your practice?
My name is Laura González. I am a priestess of the goddess from the Dianic tradition, and I am currently part of the minister's training program with Circle Sanctuary. I've been practicing eclectic Wicca for about 10 years, and I've been living my life through the philosophy of the Mexica Tenochca people, known as the Aztecs. I believe from birth, you know, I'm Mexican, so there's a lot of magic and a lot of healing tradition that comes with it. And also intertwined with my formation and my practice is what I learned from my parents. My father being a New Age practitioner when New Age was new, and my mother being a natural witch. I never heard her self-identify as a natural witch, but I observed that she was. So all of that, you put a nice ribbon on top of it, and that's what the Blue Witch does. that's Laura.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with you all. I'm Byron Ballard. I am Asheville, North Carolina's village witch. I'm an author, an occasional blogger. I practice a folk magic tradition, which is my magical practice, but my spiritual practice is goddess focused. I'm one of the founders of Mother Grove Goddess Temple, and I serve as the elder clergy person there, senior clergy, and I am a Wiccan high priestess. So I do a little bit of everything. And I'm a farmer and an herbalist.
Sure. My name's Wade. I've been, I guess I'd call it just a general pagan since 1992. I lean pretty heavily towards the heathen end of things and Northern European practices. I've been a tiersman since 97, in which that is a kind of a henotheistic focus on a singular god. So believing and honoring many gods, but having a primary focus on one, which would be the Norse god Tyr of the one hand and justice and all that good stuff. And so I live at Deeply Rooted, which is a pagan sanctuary up here in Northwoods, Wisconsin, northwest of Wausau, which is 160 acres of beautiful sacred land. I've been here for about 20 years. And I also do prison ministry for the last 17 years. Well, not with this COVID silliness going on, but getting back to that as soon as possible. And so I live a lot of my life within the pagan heathen world. And that's pretty much where I'm at.
Could you describe to us how your tradition or your practice sees protection as a concept and a practice?
I believe that everything begins with the mind and the intention. So I naturally believe that we need to be protected at all times. And I think that protection comes from your devotion, from your devotional practice, your daily practice. And also from actively having faith and living every day through your faith, knowing that the divine is always with you. In this case, I refer to the divine as the goddess. So knowing that goddess is with me all the time and being thankful. For me, in my very personal practice, I am a devotee of goddess Fortuna. So my personal experience is to receive the favor of Fortuna, you have to put in gratitude. So I'm a person that believes in gratitude as a means of protection, you know, thankful for all the things that go well and thankful for the things that might not be going so well, but they will turn, like the wheel of fortune that continuously will be turning. And I think one has to be not fearful all the time. It's a very different concept to be afraid all the time and needing to be protected all the time because you're afraid that something is going to happen, as opposed to being cautious, you know, taking the precautions to be safe and ergo, you know, finding a life that is going to be lived well protected and in harmony with the universe and the divine.
I think probably as most other people, I'm going to say I speak for myself and not necessarily for my tradition. though there will be a lot of commonalities between what I say and what other people believe. That's the caveat we almost always have to put before any comment these days, isn't it? In no way do I speak for all of my people or the people with whom I associate. Protection. Well, we believe that protection is a necessity. I know there are some people who feel like they just let the universe happen as it is going to happen, and they sort of roll with the punches, and they practice more resilience than protection. But I have always been a belt and suspenders kind of person, both with my magical practice and my spiritual practice. So the idea that you could know that something is coming towards you, whatever that is, either physical or metaphysical, then and gives yourself, it will give you a chance to set up some protections, both physical and metaphysical, in the processes that we call warding, shielding. Mine always goes first directly to grounding, because I am in all things an animist, and that connection, that deep connection to the planet, affords us so much that when we skimp on that step, we end up many times feeling even more out of balance than we did before, if that makes sense. So did that answer that enough, or would you like a little bit more?
I think that's good.
Okay.
So my next question is, what sort of issues require you to do protective work?
All sorts of issues. The world is filled with energies. And as I say in some of my classes, the thing about energy that we sometimes forget and we really need to remember is that if you use energy in the morning to put bread in the toaster oven, it will toast your bread. But if you stick a fork in a light socket, it will toast your butt. So the idea that there are energies that are moving constantly through the world that we live in should give us pause about how we not only perceive those energies, but utilize those energies if we choose to do that, or protect ourselves from them if we choose to do that. We so often in my world, people will send me a message of some sort saying they know so-and-so must have put a hex on them because suddenly their life is not going very well. And I sometimes laugh to myself because there are so few people who could actually do that. And most of the people who can actually do that level of Bane work are really not concerned at all with that sort of tit for tat stuff. So there are many instances where doing that sort of protection are called for. It may be that you are going into a difficult situation and you want to have all of your resources, both your intellectual and emotional resources, focused in, and to put protective wards around your car or your house and then shield yourself from extra energies is so important to be able to achieve the sort of focus that really sets our intentions into motion. So that is an instance. Obviously, if you feel that someone has bad intentions towards you, you're going to want to get your shields up and set some wards. But in addition to that, it doesn't hurt us at all if we are in a place where we are now. And as you know, I refer to the place we are in our cultural collapse as tower time. And if we are in this place where there is a lot of general chaotic energy flowing around that isn't necessarily directed at us personally, it's a wonderful opportunity to practice the sort of shielding that will keep that at bay while you go ahead to do the work that you are called to do.
Well, for heathen and Northern European and like the whole Asatru Odinism as a big general concept, tends to take protection a little more pragmatically and a little more physically, in which protection is the idea, it's a kind of a constant state. It's not something that you do when needed, it's something that you always have, you're always engaged in. So there's a pretty solid emphasis on like physical capacity, physical fitness, physical, vitality, and so that you are always ready to deal with any problems that might come up. And so when they do come up, you're just kind of like automatically ready. You have that mindset that, and again, historically, the Northern European place is a pretty dangerous place for everybody. So you constantly had to have your armor and your shield up and be ready for some animal or some person to try to kill you at any given moment. And so that kind of has more of the mental aspect of it, that you are always in kind of an intentionally ready state. There's the rune Thurisaz, which is kind of just the line with the kind of triangle in the front, with that represents the spiked shield, and it's called sometimes the thorn or the active defense, in which you always have the ability to do something about any problem that might come up, and therefore you don't really worry that much about things you need protection from, because you can take it and you are ready to take it on.
What sort of issues require you to do protective work?
I believe that in this day and age, it comes from going to the street, going to the corner store, if you want to be protected, if you want to be safe, especially for folks that live in big cities like myself or other people that, they go from New York or California or what have you, to be safe, to be protected. In this case, we live in the COVID times, so, to be protected, to be healthy, etc. But also in general, you never know when your time is up, and you always want to be protected and you want to be in harmony with the universe. So in general, as I was saying earlier, your daily devotion will be a means of protection. But if you are also, we are very sensitive people, us, the people that are trying to reconnect or trying to have our religion live through nature and the nature cycles. We're very sensitive to energy, and we're very sensitive to what I always tell people might be unintentional people clinging to your energy or depleting that energy that you exude, or in layman terms, sometimes envy or jealousy, or, even sometimes our own insecurities can cause this type of situations. And I think that one has to be proactive to protect themselves when one feels that they need extra protection. And that will go beyond the daily practice if you have one, or if you don't have a daily practice, then to be very focused and minded about, okay, I'm going to do this ritual, or I'm going to do this chant, or I'm going to do this wash, or I'm going to cleanse my house, or I'm going to smoke a little bit of incense or whatever, with the focus and the intention of changing the energies and then bring about protection. And there are various numbers of techniques, of course, that people utilize. And yeah, I think the main thing is to trust your intuition. And if you feel that you need a little extra protection, then go for it.
All sorts of issues. The world is filled with energies. And as I say in some of my classes, the thing about energy that we sometimes forget and we really need to remember is that if you use energy in the morning to put bread in the toaster oven, it will toast your bread. But if you stick a fork in a light socket, it will toast your butt. So the idea that there are energies that are moving constantly through the world that we live in should give us pause about how we not only perceive those energies, but utilize those energies if we choose to do that, or protect ourselves from them if we choose to do that. We so often in my world, people will send me a message of some sort saying they know so-and-so must have put a hex on them because suddenly their life is not going very well. And I sometimes laugh to myself because there are so few people who could actually do that. And most of the people who can actually do that level of Bane work are really not concerned at all with that sort of tit for tat stuff. So there are many instances where doing that sort of protection are called for. It may be that you are going into a difficult situation and you want to have all of your resources, both your intellectual and emotional resources, focused in, and to put protective wards around your car or your house and then shield yourself from extra energies is so important to be able to achieve the sort of focus that really sets our intentions into motion. So that is an instance. Obviously, if you feel that someone has bad intentions towards you, you're going to want to get your shields up and set some wards. But in addition to that, it doesn't hurt us at all if we are in a place where we are now. And as you know, I refer to the place we are in our cultural collapse as tower time. And if we are in this place where there is a lot of general chaotic energy flowing around that isn't necessarily directed at us personally, it's a wonderful opportunity to practice the sort of shielding that will keep that at bay while you go ahead to do the work that you are called to do.
Again, for the Northern European tradition, there was definitely some focus on the idea of the necessary things for spiritual protection. But again, the primary 99% focus was on the practicals, on the physical. So the idea of that you really weren't that worried about, ghosts or spirits or negative energies or, people coming to, sap your energy. You were worried about, walruses eating you or your neighbor trying to stab you for your food. I'm being extraordinarily facetious there, of course. But that your preparedness, your mentality was very physical based, and so the idea of having a weapon on you, an actual physical weapon, was a very common practice. And in the modern world, I know most heathens are pro Second Amendment, pro gun, pro sword, pro crossbow, pro any kind of weapon you can imagine. And I think what that does is that when you have that physical capacity to defend and protect yourself, it bleeds over automatically into the mental, into the spiritual. That if you know you can take care of yourself physically in any situation, it's very easy to then be able to spiritually take care of yourself. And in many of the again northern traditions, you don't shy away from conflict or battle or even death. These things are a part of the natural cycle and can be a glorious good thing, actually. And so you wouldn't shy away from conflict or aggression necessarily. You wouldn't seek it out, but when it showed up, you wouldn't be necessarily unhappy about it. And this kind of, again, leads to that general mentality that you're always armed in a physical, spiritual, mental way for whatever comes into your path. And so when specific things happen, like a physical aggressor, you're ready for that. When you come to a situation where there's a stress or worry or about something like that comes up at work or with your family, you're already in that mindset of how to physically protect yourself from any harm that's coming your way. And then spiritually, again, you are hopefully in a situation where you are walking well with the sacred, with the gods, with the ancestors, with the things you find sacred. And if there is a problem, you can automatically call upon them. They're always there. They're always ready to assist you. They're not going to do the work for you. They're not going to protect you just for your own sake. But if you've proven yourself worthy, if you put the effort and the energy into it, then they will be there when needed, regardless of what the situation is.
So to follow up on that bridges very nicely into my next question, which is what sort of protective work do you do day to day?
I do, and going back to my father, and this might sound paradoxical for people that work a lot with intention and mantras and the power of the word, because one of the laws of magic is never speak about what you don't want, right? So instead of saying this doesn't hurt, the mantra should be this is pleasant, right? Or this feels good. However, this is something that I learned from my father when I was like probably 6 or 7 years old. and it's a mantra that I go to all the time. And it obviously rolls off the tongue in Spanish, and in English it's a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to give you both versions. Un halo magnético me protege y nada ni nadie me puede hacer daño, which means a magnetic halo protects me, nothing and no one can hurt me. Mm. And so by the modern standards of magic from people that I learned, you know, on all these years of practice, oh, you shouldn't talk about nothing and no one can hurt me, because you're acknowledging that there's hurt. However, this has been something that has been with me since I was a child, and it has just become my very personal protection mantra, spell, practice, etc. So what I do, and this is where we're going to get to practice and get to do things, I visualize, which is just a fancy word for imagine. I just visualize myself in a cocoon or inside of a ring or inside of a circle. And it is an impenetrable circle. And that circle irradiates just good and positive energy towards the outside. And inside of it, I am seeing myself doing what to me is one of the most sacred symbols, which is a pentacle. And I will be doing the pentacle 12 times around, kind of like a clock. And every time I do a pentacle, I repeat the mantra, you know, a magnetic halo protects me and no one and nothing can hurt me. And I try to do that every night. Sometimes I don't do it, again, with the daily devotional. However, if I am nervous, if I am in a train and someone is looking at me funny, or in this day and age where we cannot escape racism, misogyny, and all these other things, and as a person of color myself, you know, sometimes you can feel that the energy of the people that they're looking at you is not necessarily friendly. So I just go in my head and I start, you know, repeating, magnetic halo protects me and no one and nothing can hurt me. And I just try to be right here, right now, repeating that mantra. A nice exercise of seeing that as a ring. And what I have shared with some of my students and classmates here in Chicago is, if you have a ring, for example, you can charm that ring, or you can chant the mantra over the ring, or a belt, or a necklace. And if you have a necklace while you are repeating that mantra in your mind, the power of the mind, of course, it helps you connect with the ring and kind of like activate, and it's like a reset button, and you activate that energy and you just like naturally create that shield between you and the outside world. Think about that circle that you do when you're doing a ritual with your coven mates, with your witchy friends, or that circle with the community. And that circle is created to protect us all and to have the practice and the workings of magic. Well, you're bringing that energy with it, but you activate it when you physically touch the ring or touch the necklace, or if it's a belt, you're touching the belt, and, you know, like kind of like bringing that state of mind into the physicality of your world, something that you can touch, and then connecting with it, and then expanding that energy. And a curious and funny note for whoever wants to hear this is, the first time I did this exercise, imagining the bubble, my bubble became a disco ball, out of all things. So I'm inside of the disco ball, repeating the mantra and dancing. And because there are mirrors outside, but it's a curved image. So some practitioners, I've heard that they want to return the harm to the person that is sending, or to the thing or the situation that could be sending that energy towards you. But if you have a mirror that is slightly angled, that energy will bounce off and go elsewhere, right? So it's not an eye for an eye, but rather, no thank you, I don't want your energy, let me just send it out elsewhere. The great goddess will transform it into something positive.
I don't know that there's anything that I do on a daily basis, except for grounding. And I'm lucky. Grounding has always been easy for me. I don't know if it's because I've lived in this area. I live in the Southern Highlands of Appalachia. I've lived here almost all of my life. I went away to school. I lived in London for a little while, but mostly I've been here. And not only that, but generationally, my family has been here. They've been in Western North Carolina and the area immediately around that since the late 1600s, early 1700s. So grounding feels just like the touching base with the biosphere that I do on a regular basis because I'm a native of this place. I am indigenous in that way, but also because I'm an animist. So I want to be touching all those extra spirit beings around me. So I ground often, but I teach a protocol for shielding that I encourage people to do anytime they're starting to feel wobbly. And it involves, I call it the jewel case. In front of me from the earth, I pull a wall of emerald. On my right, a wall of diamond. Behind me is ruby. And over to my right is, of course, amethyst. And so it forms this circle around me that then scoops down in a bowl under my feet and above me in a dome so that I'm completely surrounded. And I have found that sometimes the energy is the chaotic energy of the world moving, of the seasons changing, of the cars that are going back and forth on the road. Sometimes it's a matter of I drank way too much black tea today and I just feel like a jittery crazy woman. And so if I can get my shields up fast, I can go, you know what, you need to drink a couple glasses of water, do some deep breathing, you're gonna be okay. And then for me, fortunately, I'm knocking on wood, on the rare occasion that I feel that that is personally directed, I want to make sure and get my shields up fast. And then I might want to mirror those shields and send back whatever is coming in my direction. That way I don't have to stop and consider who might be sending it, but just that whatever that is, I'm going to send it back. And then if it's nothing at all, it's the fact that there was a 4.7 Richter earthquake 100 miles away, and that's what I'm feeling. Nobody gets hurt. I just send the energy back and send it away. But if it's something that's pointed directly at me, I just do this little return to sender spell and send it back from the place it came, and then I don't have to think about it.
Well, physically, I try my best to keep myself physically fit and ready to take care of that sort of thing. Mentally, the idea of just being aware, like knowing where things are. Like you walk into a room, knowing, you know, what it feels like, where the people are, what's the mood of the place, what's actually going on. Always being engaged and aware of your environment, and you can then kind of cut any problems off ahead of time. There is one thing though, because working in the prisons, you definitely deal with a different level of people on a regular basis, and the normal kind of protection that I'd be doing of just, you know, being aware, being focused, having that shield up in one of the places I was going into wasn't working, and it was just, I'd come away from it drained, angry, just contaminated, I guess would be the best way to put it. And so whatever protections I had up weren't working. And so I researched a bit, and I found this really obscure concept in Northern European tradition called the Varlog, or the Vorlog, which, if you ever seen the movie 13th Warrior, there's the point where there's the kid that's on the boat, and he's just standing there on the boat, and the guy says, well, what is he doing? He said, well, he's letting people see him. It's like, well, everyone can see him. What's the problem? They said, well, that might not be him. That might be something out of the mist that might be his Varlog. And it's this belief that when you think about something, or you're sending yourself forward, like you're really looking forward to an event or something, part of you has already gone forward, is already there. And in some traditions, I believe it manifests as the Varlog, as an aspect of yourself cast forward. So moving on that idea, I figured out this system in which casting the Varlog, casting the aspect of yourself forward, but not in space or in time, just a millimeter above your skin. So there's you, and then overlapped is the cast forward Varlog aspect of yourself. And so then you concentrate on that, and you just push yourself forward that little bit, and then you go into these circumstances which may not be the greatest as far as energy or spiritual stuff, and the negative stuff attaches to that. And then I just learned that when I left the institution, I would then just kind of slough off the Varlog, that projected sense of self, and all the stuff that was attached with it went with it as well. And so then I had no problems, no issues with being drained or attacked or stuff after that. But yeah, for me, that's one been one of the biggest things. The other thing is with rune work, again, using the rune Thurisaz as just kind of visualizing that as the shield with the spike or the point on or the boss on the front of it, that you always have with you on a kind of a spiritual nature. And it's always there that if you need to, it comes up and it can push back and fight back against what you got around you. And just having that visualization, that option, always to be able to bring up that shield at any time, just really kind of gives a peace of mind. And for me, that's what's kind of worked over the years.
Could you tell us about a situation that might require protective work that goes beyond what you do day to day?
I believe precisely if you're doing work in group, if you are like myself, I fancy myself as a witch for hire. I do tarot readings, I do healings, I work with the public a lot. I put myself out there with the podcast and etc. So I'm constantly out in the public eye. But say you're gonna conduct a ritual for Samhain, or you're gonna go to do something, I don't know, to a government office. You need to go fill out a form or whatever, and you feel that there is a need for an extra layer of protection. Whether it is for magic or for something that could be seen as dangerous or something that creates anxiety for you. You know, if you have, in this day and age, if you have to go to the doctor and if you have to step foot in a hospital, that might give you anxiety. So you know what? You put your ring, you put a little layer of extra protection, and if you like the mantra that I just shared with you and you've been practicing with that, and if you charm your ring or your necklace or your belt, but you need some extra protection, then do a circle at home and cast a circle, and I don't know, put a mirror in there to reflect yourself as protected, and then go do your thing, or put an extra candle, or call into the ancestors and the divine as you understand it on your tradition. There is no such a thing as too much protection. So anything and everything that makes you feel safe, your faith should provide with you feeling safe. So whatever it is, in a personal note, I have a tiny, tiny, tiny little doll that is like a worry doll. And whenever I feel that I need that extra protection, I bring her with me. I might put it on my pocket, or I might stuck it under my shirt, or I will keep it on my hand. You know, if it's something like, if you're just going in and out, I'll say to the doctor's office or whatever, just keep it on your hand, you know, and, you know, like inconspicuously, I don't know the word, secretly,
Yeah.
Keep it by you. And there is no such thing as too much protection. I think the bottom line is that. So, you know, whatever you need to do. There are herbs and there are crystals that are very good for protection. I usually go to frankincense, incense. I will use, I myself, because I like the vibration of obsidian, I will carry an extra piece of obsidian. The possibilities are endless, and I think for each tradition or each person that practice whatever makes sense to them, to bring about the protection and to heighten that vibration. And, you know, if you have a crystal in your pocket, just rub that crystal and while you need to speak with the person. Or some people, when they do public speech, they feel very, very anxious. So, just grab a lapis lazuli and rub it on your pocket. Or, if you have I like jewelry charms a lot. So, if you have like a bracelet, and, just play with the bracelet, like, oh, like it's just the thing you're doing. People don't know what you're doing.
I'm going to go back a few years, and some of the people hearing this will remember there was a right-wing Christian group that was praying for the nation state by state, and they were directing these very harmful sounding prayers. So they weren't praying for the peace and love of each state. They were praying for the militant intervention of their particular God into the operations of each state. And this was maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. So that felt to me like an opportunity, not only for me to do some work, but to connect with magic workers and energy workers all over the state of North Carolina to create this protective web around the state. And we did that, and we did it with our neighboring states too. So we did it with Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And we would create these webs of energy that we thought of them as trampolines, so that as that prayerful, but not prayerful in a gentle and beautiful sense, but when that came flowing towards us, we wanted to be able to bounce it back and off. And so that was a time when we energetically, each of us would set our own personal shields. And then we would set wards around wherever we were working. And then together we created this enormous ward, state by state, around each of those places where we felt we were threatened. And it was a wonderful opportunity for like-minded people to work towards a particular goal, which we sometimes don't have in kind of a larger sense like that. But it also gave us a chance to kind of flex our muscles a little bit, which is really good for us. I encourage people all the time, because I'm a folk magician, to really practice magic a lot and not wait until there's an emergency, because at that point you're going to be too possibly freaked out or too involved to really be able to maybe bring your A game. So the more you practice, it's with anything. If you are a piano player, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And the same thing is true with setting wards, with personal shielding, with grounding, all of that. The more you practice, the better you get. And you can do it all the time. I don't ever recommend that somebody get their shields up and keep them up all the time. That's madness. It would take an incredible amount of energy to do that. But to discern when it is necessary to get your shields up fast. And I tell people, it's just like Star Trek. Shields up, shields up. So it can't be this lovely, languid meditation in which I raise a wall of emerald and a wall of diamond. It has to be, bam, my shields are up. I am grounded, my shields are up. What is going on? And when you practice that, you can practice it anywhere, anytime. If you're driving down the road and you're stuck at that red light that every town has one particular traffic light that seems to go on for 10 minutes. If you are stuck at that traffic light, practice your grounding and shielding. Just practice it. Doesn't hurt you. Keeps you from having road rage. I'm just going to practice my shielding. It's going to be fine. And I always, when I teach shielding, I teach it that you should bring your shields up on a Kegel exercise. And that's an exercise for your pelvic floor. So you do 1, 2, 3 Kegels, and then your shields are up. It's lovely. And plus you did a Kegel exercise. And every woman listening to this right now just did a Kegel exercise. And some of the men did too, because we all want a strong pelvic floor. That's part of our protective practice.
I mean, there's definitely like extraordinary circumstances, like you put yourself in a bad part of town at 2 a.m. kind of thing. But in general, the idea of the preparedness, the mental day-to-day practice of being ready, of being focused on your environment, of being in tuned on what's changing, what's happening around you, kind of allows you to get around and to negate that stuff before it actually gets to a bad space. It's like a couple times if you're around a campfire and again, Northern European folk tend to drink a lot, and you can notice that you know the person that's drinking too much, and if you're paying attention, and if you're one of the sober ones, you see where that's going towards a bad situation. You know that that's just a general. If you're focused, you're paying attention, you can see that going in a bad direction. And instead of having to wait until someone throws a punch and you got to physically protect yourself or take a knife off of somebody, if you can then take care of that ahead of time and realize that the person's being a problem, the energy is moving in a bad direction ahead of time, you can then cut off that problem for more extreme needs for protection. On a totally different note, living out on the land, we have the Fey folk or the Landvites here, or whatever you want to call them, that are, some are very helpful and joyful and pleasant, some are not. And having a consistent relationship with them, I don't know if that kind of qualifies as protection, but it does protect you from bad, weird stuff happening, in which you regularly leave offerings, you have a consistent relationship, in which if they take something or something bad starts happening, you kind of know who you need to give an extra offering to or negotiate an extra interaction with. And that's just more about, I guess, maintaining relationships with the Fey folk or the unseen folk and the land itself. And that, I wish there was some sort of way to tell people to do it the right way every time, but it is so hit or miss or random. I don't think there's any way you can actually learn or teach that. You just kind of got to go and figure out what works on the way.
Do you have anything you want to tell us about? Do you have any new projects that you want to share?
Sure. I, as always, to invite everybody, of course, I had to put my commercial out there to listen to CSMP, listen to the Circle Sanctuary Network podcast. We have, of course, Selena Fox's 2 shows on Sunday and Wednesday. We have Circle Talk, we have Moon Magic, and we have yours truly with Lunatic Mondays, Lunes Lunáticos, and then the wonderful team of Paganos del Mundo offering podcasts on Spanish and Portuguese. And also, I'm going to be doing presentations online this year. I will be doing, so far, Witch Fest North. That is going to be online because of obvious reasons. And because of that, I actually got invited. So I will be presenting on October 9th. I will be doing my Day of the Dead / Native Traditions presentation. And I know a lot of people probably have seen me or heard me on the podcast do the Day of the Dead thing, but I promise you, every time is different. For A, sometimes I forget things and then I just say them on the next time. And B, this is such a evolving and living tradition that every time we do talk about Day of the Dead, there's something new, you know. And I also have done some Spanish collaborations for the fall equinox celebration and the Dark Goddesses, and those will be available on pre-recording. So for people who speak Spanish, they can check on those. And then I'm also welcome to whatever comes. You know, I will be letting you all know.
I'm picking a lot of green beans in my garden, which is really, really important because they're delicious. But my big projects are, I'm doing a podcast with a friend of mine called Weird Mountain Gals, WYRD, and it's all about Appalachian folk culture. I have a book coming out in February from Llewellyn called Roots, Branches, and Spirits, which is about Appalachian folk magic. I have a book coming out tentatively titled Seasons of a Pagan Life, coming out from Wiser in late spring of next year. And that's a book on following the wheel of the year and deepening your spiritual practice through animistic practices. Mm-hmm. And I'm writing a cookbook. Yeah, and learning some Italian. So yeah, I'm keeping busy in COVID, and I know everybody else is too, and just holding on to how we walk through the next couple of months till we get through the election, and then sort of discern or suss out what happens next.
Always doing new stuff. Actually, two projects. The Pagan Homeland Foundation is a big one that I'm working on right now, in which trying to get deeply rooted. It's awesome. It's great to have people up there, but we don't want 50,000 pagans camping out on our land. So the idea of having, we need to have more space, more physical places for pagan folk across the country. So the idea of the Pagan Homeland Foundation is to get funds together and to help small groups incorporate and become 501c3 organizations, and then apply for grants. They can then purchase buildings and land that can be part of the pagan homeland, where we can do and congregate and do pagan stuff. Like right now, I'm actually, after I'm done here, I'm driving down to Colby, Wisconsin, where there's a church for sale. Colby's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it'd be kind of nice to buy up the old churches that are going up for sale and turn them into pagan temples. The other project I'm working on is the Pagan Resource Guide, in which just got this really nice interactive map of Wisconsin, and we're trying to get all the groups and organizations to just put a little tab on there so that people can know where things are and where to plug in. So many times people are trying to look for pagans and they just don't know, or if you don't find them online, you're out of luck. And so we're doing that. Both those are through Deeply Rooted at the moment, so deeply-rooted.org, or Wade M on Facebook, Pagan Homeland Foundation on Facebook, Deeply Rooted Church on Facebook, or give me a call, 715-574-5288. Happy to help with any sort of pagan stuff going on out there.